I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the disappearance of Matthew Johnson, a Utah father and husband, and the arrest of his wealthy wife, Jennifer Gledhill, for first-degree murder. Here's the story. In suburban Cottonwood Heights, Utah, a family's nightmare unfolded in September of 2024. Military veteran Matthew Johnson disappeared, last seen after reporting to work. His estranged wife, Jennifer, reported him missing days later, many assuming a painful breakdown in the middle of their bitter divorce and custody fight. But the truth was far darker. A confidential informant revealed Jennifer allegedly confessed to shooting Matthew in his sleep, then disposing of his body in a remote, shallow grave hidden somewhere north of their home. Her parents, Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill, were also arrested for obstruction of justice after reportedly aiding in crime scene cleanup and buying a replacement mattress to erase evidence. Jennifer, a mother of three, pleaded not guilty to multiple felony charges, including first-degree murder and obstruction. She remains jailed without bail as detectives scour for Matthew's remains. Her trial is scheduled for December of 2025. So this is one of those cases that, as most cases like this, a bit of a challenge for prosecutors, because you're talking about a murder case where the body has not been recovered. However, prosecutors do believe that they've got the goods on Jennifer Gledhill. Take a listen.
On September 22nd, the defendant confessed to the informant that she shot Matthew in the master bedroom with a gun as he slept in the master bed. She confessed that she smashed Matthew's cell phone and hid his truck in a neighborhood near the house. She also confessed that she loaded Matthew's body into a rooftop storage container, slid him down the stairs, and loaded him into the back of her minivan. She confessed that she took Matthew's body north, dug a hole, and buried him in a shallow grave. And she confessed that she cleaned everything up.
So they're counting on an alleged confession by the killer in all this in a case where the body has never been found. So what exactly is the plan here? Like, what is going on? Let's get to the first question in our investigation. What is the alleged murder plot here? So what was the plan, according to prosecutors, that Jennifer Gledhill had for the murder of her husband? Joining us to help answer that question, host of the true crime podcast, Pretty Lies and Alibis, Gigi McKelvey is with us. And joining us by phone, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, psychotherapist, author of Till Death Do Us Part, incredibly appropriate for this case, and the host of the new YouTube series, The Pivot, with Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Thank you both for being here. All right, Gigi and Dr. Robbie, let me play a little bit more from the prosecutor and then start to talk about this alleged plan that Jennifer Gledhill had.
On the early morning of September 21st, her phone data tracks her on that blue line all the way down to the bottom red dot, and where on September 30th, Matthew's truck was recovered. During a search of the defendant's and Matthew's residence, the police observed the following: a new mattress on the master bed, a smell of bleach in the house, fresh wipe marks from the cleaning on the wall behind the master bed, and blood found in the carpet underneath the master bed and on the slats of the master bed. This is the mapping of the defendant's phone on September 22nd. It shows her traveling up north. It also, during that time, she also turned her phone off for 2.5 hours. There's also videos that confirm that videos at different locations that confirm she's up north during this time. That GPS phone data, that tracking map that we showed on the previous exhibit, put the defendant at a specific location. A location that, upon further investigation, it turns out the defendant discarded even more evidence.
Okay, let's bring back in our guest. Gigi, it seems like the plot here is to make this look like this is a guy who's missing. This is a guy who left and something happened to him, but clearly it wasn't a murder.
Right. I mean, that's really how it looked like she was setting this up. Didn't want to be the one responsible for his murder. You know, I mean, he was a member of the Utah National Guard. They reported him missing, were even going to consider him AWOL. So for a little while, it looked like the plan may work until a few days later, they go into the house and find a lot of evidence just there in the residence that a violent crime had taken place in that bedroom.
Now, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, we look at this couple, right? So, you know, couples break up. It happens. It happens at a very high rate, unfortunately. Although I think the rate's actually getting lower these days. And you look at this picture, right? This is like the perfect family, right? When you look at the photo, you got the 3 children, all different heights. You've got mom, you've got dad. For whatever reason, things break up. How do we go from, listen, things aren't working out, it's time to move on, you know, the spark isn't there, to I'm going to kill, dismember, and discard your body? Like, how can anyone even get there to have it enter their mind to plan and plot all of this?
Yeah, it's hard for a person who's healthy to think along those lines. But when somebody has sociopathic tendencies, they're enraged and they really believe that their partner has interfered with them living a life that they feel entitled to. The picture perfect picture is a facade, but something that each person in a couple maybe wanted to create but wasn't there. And so there's a rage, and there's also the financial element. When you go through a divorce, people come out of the divorce having a lot less money. They have a different status in society. And some people are not willing to go through that process, and they think they can get away with murder, which is mind-boggling today because it's hard to get away with anything given the way our phones are structured and just how many digital, pieces of information we all leave behind.
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely different world these days. Gigi, what was going on behind closed doors with this couple? What's the backstory here?
Well, they were not a happy couple, obviously. There was some talk of a divorce that was getting very contentious. And on top of that, she had a lover. She had a boyfriend, which is what we hear about so often in cases like this where a spouse ends up dead. It's the person's got a boyfriend. And that was the case here. And I think and like the previous guest was talking about, in their mind, they think if I just kill them and get rid of them, this will all go away. I can live happily ever after. And they never think that how many times do you pass a camera when you go from point A to point B? Like 30 is the average. But in their mind, the only solution is to kill. I think that she was over it. She wanted to be with this lover she had, and she was disgusted with her husband. I think that's the bottom line. She wanted him gone and was not thinking rationally when she murdered him in the home, in the bed where he slept.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, till death do us part. That is the vow that most couples take.
Yep.
And, you go from a point, and this is the other thing that I don't understand. You've got these three children that we see in the photo here, right? How about a thought about what it does to them? How does that not get into the equation? How is it just about, oh, I can't be with this man or I can't be with this woman, to, hey, maybe the 3 kids might need 2 parents. They might do a little bit better with a mom and a dad.
Well, when somebody is in a selfish, sociopathic state of mind, they're not thinking of anyone other than themselves. They're not thinking with empathy, right? Anyone to make that cold heart type of killing somebody in their sleep, is not thinking, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I should think about if my kids need a father. At that point, this person is thinking about their happiness, what they're entitled to, and the kids will survive because at least they have the mom. And as the mom, if the mom's happy, the kids will be happy. Who knows what they are telling themselves? But they're really in this deluded state of grandiosity where they think that they could just kill off the husband and then live the desired life that they want to live. And there's very little self-reflection of, what if this doesn't work out? Or what if I get caught? Or what if my kids hate me forever because I killed their father? Those things are not being considered.
All right. Our guests are staying with us. We've got a lot more to get to. Jennifer Gledhill obviously has pleaded not guilty, going to trial on all this. Coming up next, what did Jennifer Gledhill tell her lover on the phone?
I always preached that I was like the Queen of Hearts in my past lives because I'm like off with their heads.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot.
Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins August 19th, only on Court TV.
I wanted to remind the court that there was a letter filed a long time ago from Matthew Johnson's family. I just want to briefly reference that letter. If she can brutally murder her husband with no remorse, she's clearly capable of harming her children. She's uncooperative in helping law enforcement locating the children's father's body.
Incredibly tragic, these children missing and losing their father. And now mom's been charged with the murder, and grandma and grandpa allegedly helping after the fact. So there's a lot going on with this family and a lot that these children will have to deal with in the years to come. But looking at this case, there is physical evidence that will be crucial for prosecutors, but there is also a very important witness, and they refer to him as the informant. Take a listen.
I now want to talk about the evidence that was provided by the identified informant. On September 22nd, the defendant confessed to the informant that she shot Matthew in the master bedroom with a gun as he slept in the master bed.
So who is the informant? The informant is Jennifer Gledhill's lover. And they've got this phone call that is recorded. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. What did Jennifer Gledhill tell her lover on the phone? Here to help with our investigation, Gigi McKelvey, and joining us on the phone, Dr. Robbie Ludwig. All right, let's take a listen to this call, or the prosecutor describing this call. They have a recording. They didn't play it, though, in court. Let's take a listen.
Right before the defendant reported Matthew missing, the informant recorded a phone call with the defendant. And rather than playing it here, I just want to summarize some points and what is recorded on that recording. In the phone call, the defendant apologizes for telling the informant about what happened. She tells him to not think of her as a monster and to remember her who she was before she opened her mouth. And the informant tells the defendant that he was frightened by what she had told him. And then the informant, and I quote, says to her, hypothetically, if the roles were reversed and I did something to someone and I told you that I carried it out, like, you would be shocked and scared, wouldn't you? And the defendant responds, quoting, well, not if I deserved it. I always preached that I was like the Queen of Hearts in my past lives because I'm like off with their heads. I'm like, if we could just round up the scum of this earth and put them on an island or just kill them all, I could shipshape this country back into a good place. Now then, even in that phone call, she starts claiming that this is just a hypothetical situation. However, she tells, and I quote the informant, "I think that the fact that you got scared of me, that part, it broke my heart, because I was like, wow, if you think I could even hurt a fly, like he's not a person. He wasn't a person anymore. He wasn't Matt anymore." And what's key from that recording is at this point, Matt hadn't been reported missing. Yet the defendant was referring to him in the past tense. The defendant told the informant that she would kill herself before spending her life in prison, or that she would flee the state with her children.
This recorded phone call by her lover, what a piece of evidence. Gigi McKelvey, to me, this is going to be, when you press play for that and the jury's listening to this, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that is your golden piece of evidence right there. It's her own mouth. And I mean, the fact that she's saying that it breaks her heart that he's now frightened of her, I mean, what does she expect? He has to think, I mean, I'm sure he wasn't calling her in the days after she confessed in person. You know, one thing that stood out to me is where she said he's not a person anymore. He wasn't Matt anymore. It reminded me of Lori Daybell, who said the same thing about Charles Vallow when she killed him. I think this is going to be game over for her in the eyes of the jury. You have it coming out of her own mouth. You can't dispute it. She wasn't under any kind of distress when she was talking to her lover. It almost seems like she was trying to very gently convince him, hey, I'm not a monster. And like you say, referring to him in the past tense when he hadn't been reported missing, I don't think it's going to leave very many questions for this jury. Who killed Mr. Johnson?
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, I'm sure the defense will say it's not a confession, but prosecutors are referring to it as a confession. Why is she telling her lover these things? And why in her mind does she believe that this man would want to be with a woman who is done with one man and is allegedly confessing to killing him so she could be with, you know, another one? Like, what's going to happen at the end of that relationship? Like,
yeah,
like, is that like, don't ever break up with me, or don't ever, I mean, what do you think is the mindset here?
It is a little bit of a warning, right? Like, you know, don't get on my bad side. Here's a warning. And this guy's probably thinking, oh my God, I would never sleep next to a woman who kills her husband in his sleep. You know, again, this is a woman who is not thinking clearly. And I would think that she probably structures her life very much like a person is all good or all bad, and there's nothing in between. So it's a borderline personality disorder where her husband was all bad. There was nothing good about him. He wasn't even a person. So killing him was just, you know, highlighting what he was to me. But you're different. You're all good. I won't do that to you. I believe in us. And she's not even aware of how she's coming off because she has no observing ego. She has no ability to see herself accurately or probably the world accurately, which is why she's in the position she's in.
You know, Gigi, like every case, the jury will be judging her life. They'll be listening to her, but they'll also be seeing her in court. And her appearance in court is interesting. The way she's had a few appearances, but this one where she's got the glasses and she, you know, doesn't strike you as necessarily, at least me, as someone who would be a cold-blooded killer. But what are your thoughts about her appearance and demeanor if the jury is going to have an opportunity to see her as she was at this hearing?
Well, the appearance is a really common tactic by defense attorneys to make their clients look less intimidating. I remember walking into the Jodi Arias courtroom and seeing her in person and thought, she looks like a librarian and not capable of doing what she did. So it's a visual thing that they do to make the juries feel like she's less capable. You know, it's just going to depend on her demeanor, her body language. I don't think there's much help to be had here with the evidence that we know of. I'm sure there's evidence we don't know of, but it's going to be very hard for this jury to like this woman who killed a sleeping man who was her husband, took them away from the children, and disposed of him like he was trash. I mean, they have the other evidence of the container she put him in that washed up along with the mattress, the pillows wrapped in that rug that they have photos of him sleeping on the couch right next to. I just don't think appearances are going to matter in this, but definitely did notice they put her in the librarian outfit and made her look a lot less intimidating.
Dr. Robbie, another thing is she attempted to get protective orders against her husband, but was unsuccessful. I'm wondering if that may be part of the case, talking about that she was the victim in this relationship.
It's certainly possible. We also don't know if that was part of her plan. If she already had decided to kill him, she had this lover, and how could she demonize this person that she no longer had use for? Could there have been abuse? You know, you never know between two people in a marriage, and she also could have been the one who initiated the abuse, and if he protected himself, you know, she considered that enough to qualify as an abusive relationship. To me, it sounds like if anyone was abusive, it was probably her. But this could all be, if you have a sick mind, how a sick mind interprets different events can be very varied, and her reality could be very different than the reality that actually existed.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, thank you so much. Gigi McKelvey, Pretty Lies and Alibis. Dr. Robbie, of course, The Pivot with Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Appreciate it. Okay, we said there's physical evidence here. Up next, how did investigators connect the evidence to the murder? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the disappearance of Matthew Johnson and the arrest of his wealthy estranged wife and her parents for the murder and cover-up. Here's the story. 42-year-old Jennifer Gledhill presented herself as a successful Utah mother of three until she allegedly transformed into something far more sinister. In late September of 2024, after a contentious divorce and custody fight, she texted her father demanding $13,000 by Friday, just days before her husband, National Guard veteran Matthew Johnson, vanished from their home. A confidential informant who was Jennifer's lover later claimed that Jennifer allegedly confessed to shooting Matthew in his sleep, dismembering his body into a storage container and burying him in a shallow grave. He described the act as cold and mission-like. Court documents reveal investigators found bleach-soaked master bedroom walls, fresh bloodstains, and a newly purchased mattress, all pointing to a staged crime scene. Her parents were arrested for allegedly laundering the scene and helping to cover up the killing. Gledhill pleaded not guilty to 9 felonies, including first-degree murder. The trial is scheduled for December of 2025, even as Matthew's body remains undiscovered, turning this suburban tragedy into a case of suspicion, betrayal, and unbearable loss. There is a crucial witness in all this, and we've been talking about him. This is the so-called informant, which we all believe and has been disclosed to be by the prosecution in this case as Jennifer Gledhill's lover, who has information about an alleged confession made by Jennifer Gledhill. Now, there is also physical evidence in this case. Take a listen to the prosecutor.
The state believes the defendant was very calculating in her crimes. Just days after that temporary protective order was removed, she arranged for the children to stay at her parents' during the evening that Matthew was killed. And she asked her parents to keep the children home at their house for another day, presumably while she was cleaning up the crime and disposing of Matthew's body. The evidence is significant that the defendant obstructed the investigation by removing the mattress and replacing it days later with a new mattress. The cargo box that had been observed by witnesses at the home on prior occasion was disposed of and then later located. The mattress pillows and the mattress pad were also disposed of and then later recovered.
Okay. So you've got physical evidence here, but you've also got a murder, but you don't have a body. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. How did investigators connect the evidence to the murder? Here to help answer this question, retired police commander Mike King. He's also the host of the podcast Profiling Evil and the author of the new book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, and is joining us from Utah. Also with us, criminal defense attorney, former district attorney Matthew Mangino. Thank you both for being here. Okay, let's start going through some of this physical evidence. Let's start with a key piece, which is the storage container, the cargo container apparently used to transport the victim in this case. Let's listen.
Law enforcement did in fact locate that rooftop storage container with the assistance of the military in Davis County. It was located after a storm. We believe it floated from where it was concealed by the defendant. If you go to State's Exhibit 8. State's Exhibit 8 is that same storage container. You can see that it was duct taped, but I want to note the specific design and the logo from that container. If we could go to 9. This is a screenshot recovered from the defendant's phone. And if we go to State's Exhibit 10, this is zoomed up close. You can see it's the same design, it's the same logo. We go to 11. This is Blue Star imaging from blood found, human blood found in that storage container. DNA analysis has determined that it's Matthew's blood.
Mike King, the pieces coming together for investigators there. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what Matthew has to say, but I mean, holy cow, Vinny, we not only have physical evidence, we've got forensic evidence starting to pile up. We've got eyewitness accounts starting to pile up. We have at least admissions, maybe even confessions. And this tote alone is so incredibly compelling because not only is it photographed and there's imagery of it at the home, but that thing is recovered in the swamp with his DNA inside of it. And while it might have originally been hidden away, I'll tell you, I know that area well. I duck hunted out there as a kid like crazy, and I know how tough those swamps are to walk around in, but things can become dislodged by a storm. And what you thought was hidden yesterday, in this case, became discoverable within a few days.
Yes, Matthew Mangino, looking at this, I mean, this looks like, circumstantially putting this together, sounds like you are proving that there is a dead body in that container.
Yeah, Vinny, I mean, when you look at this case, to start with, you have a divorce and custody action, that was very embittered. So the first place you're going to look when somebody disappears is you're going to look at the spouse. And then when you start to compound that with the fact that, she told her lover she killed her husband, and then you start to connect, GPS evidence, and you have video surveillance of her cleaning her vehicle. You have this cargo container with the victim's DNA in it. This is evidence that keeps compounding and growing, really, by good police work, and ultimately, you have a case that seems very, very solid.
Now, let's talk about the mattress, the pillows, and the rug. Take a look.
Now, that GPS phone data, that tracking map that we showed on the previous exhibit, put the defendant at a specific location. A location that, upon further investigation, it turns out the defendant discarded even more evidence. Law enforcement located the master bed foam mattress and pillows which were wrapped up in a rug from the residence. If we go to 13. Now 13 is that same rug, and that is the mattress pad and pillows, we believe, from the defendant's residence. If you could go to 14. Now, 14 is, in fact, a screenshot from a body camera a month prior to the murder, and that is of the master bedroom. And you can see it looks just like the same foam mattress. And then State's Exhibit 15, that is the rug that was wrapped around the foam mattress and the pillows unobscured. And we go to 16. 16 is a screenshot from the defendant's phone taken from 2023. That is the same rug, and that is Matthew Johnson next to the same rug.
Mike, unbelievable that they're able to put these pieces together and take the evidence and put it into the house and connect it to the victim here.
Boy, I'll say, and the idea, I mean, it even looked like some of that bedding that was in the imagery is also recovered at the scene. At least the design and the patterns look very similar. So now you have something that is confirmed to be at the residence and something that looks exactly like it recovered with his remains on it, blood at least, and some DNA. And then you have the idea that this all came and originated at the home, is put in this same location, that there's a digital footprint showing her mobile device out in that area, and her testimony that I happened to drive out this direction. And Vinnie, this thing just keeps piling on and on and on, and it's going to be a really tough mountain for them to climb over.
Matthew Mangino, as they say in the old commercial, but wait, there's more. Take a listen here to the prosecutor explaining the blood stain and some DNA.
On State's Exhibit 3 is a cutout from that rug. Now, the location of that blood stain is consistent where Matthew would sleep. Put his head on the mattress. And that's consistent from the videos that the state has, that the evidence in this case of them arguing in their bedroom that night. Now, going to State's Exhibit 4, now that is Blue Star imaging that confirmed that it's positive for human blood. And in addition, DNA analysis has confirmed that that is Matthew's blood. And State's Exhibit 5 is also Blue Star imaging of confirming that it's human blood on the slats of the master bed.
And Matthew, it also matches what the lover is saying is part of the confession. So it seems that the only place the defense could go with that is to point the finger at the lover and say, he's trying to put this all on her through the confession, and that's how he knows this stuff, because he's the one that did it.
Yeah. Well, you know, Vinnie, the defense is going to do whatever they can to zealously represent their client. But obviously, you know, it's going to be a tough row to hoe as this evidence begins and continues to pile up. The defense is going to say, well, there's no body. Well, we know that that doesn't matter. We know cases can be successfully prosecuted without a body. They may point the finger at the boyfriend, but certainly the boyfriend, if he's going to, take out the husband because he wants to have a relationship with her, he's certainly not going to go to the police and tell them this story. Or if he doesn't want to be around her, he's not going to kill her husband. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for the defense to put something together, as this evidence continues to mount. There are no perfect crimes. And as we know, between surveillance, between GPS, between looking at old digital pictures that put evidence together, the police have done a nice job here, but certainly her and at least her father have helped out when he said, I didn't go into the room where the incident occurred when they were interviewing him. So there's a lot of evidence in this case for the state.
Certainly is. All right. Now, Matthew mentioned no body. Well, still to come, where is Matthew Johnson?
His military ID and his passport were found in the master bedroom, and the last person to see him alive was the defendant.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
If you ever needed an answer to something, he was the first guy to turn to. He was always the smartest guy in the room. He was funny. I mean, the amount of times that guy has made me laugh, belly laugh, like it's unreal. And we're all losing sleep. We're all, we need closure. We need to know where his body's at. We're not the type of people that would leave a friend behind.
And that is a close friend of Matthew Johnson, and really troubled by the fact that his body has not been recovered. And all of this, the case began as a missing persons investigation. Let's take a listen to the prosecutor describe some of the things, some of the evidence surrounding his disappearance in this case.
Matthew has not been seen or heard from since September 20th of 2024. He's not been to work. His family and his friends have not seen him. There's no phone records or bank records, no activity. His military ID and his passport were found in the master bedroom. And the last person to see him alive was the defendant. The mattress is still missing. The gun is still missing. The very gun that we have video of her handling, and the same gun she showed the informant just days before the murder. The search for Matthew Johnson's body is ongoing. And his family just wants to bring Matthew home.
And it's amazing. We've been talking about all the different types of evidence in this case, but the one thing they don't have is the victim himself, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Where is Matthew Johnson? It seems they're able to recover so many things. The foam part of the mattress, the blanket, the rug, the cargo holder. But where is he? Here to help with our investigation, still with us, Mike King and Matthew Mangino. Let's take a quick listen to the prosecutor describing at least the general area where they believe he may be.
She also confessed that she loaded Matthew's body into a rooftop storage container, slid him down the stairs, and loaded him into the back of her minivan. She confessed that she took Matthew's body north, dug a hole, and buried him in a shallow grave. And she confessed that she cleaned everything up. Much of the information that was provided to law enforcement by the informant has been verified by actual tangible evidence.
All right, Mike, this is your neck of the woods. Why haven't they found him?
I think the biggest reason is because this is a microscopic needle in a cosmic haystack, Vinny. I mean, that area is tough. And I'll tell you what, it's covered with reeds. You can see in the background where the dogs are searching here. This area is muddy. The mud is so thick, it'll pull your boots off when you're walking through it. The thing that's got me a little intrigued is the fact that the tote, if in fact she did bury the entire tote, somehow was dislodged. So was it dislodged because of animal predation, or was there an effort like from water moving through an area that broke away an area and that came into the water, which made its way into that marshy area that we were seeing imagery of that thing being recovered by it. And you can see that river that runs there is a deep and pretty fast moving river. It's doesn't have rapids, but it is a fast moving river that comes into that area. So there are a lot of places that this thing can hide. And, you know, I had flashbacks of our discussions about Harmony Montgomery and her body being in that marshland north of Boston and how big that area is. I think you got the same kind of a challenge here. And the problem with those marshlands is the body is going to decompose quickly if, in fact, the body is still intact, because it makes you wonder with some of the other movements that we see based on her mobile device movement, going to an apartment complex, a couple of gas stations before she heads to the car wash, that there's a possibility that the body might have been dissected into smaller pieces.
Yeah, let's take a listen to the prosecutor now describe some of the locations of the defendant's phone.
This is the mapping of the defendant's phone on September 22nd. It shows her traveling up north. It also, during that time, she also turned her phone off for 2.5 hours. There's also videos that confirm that videos at different locations that confirm she's up north during this time.
All right, Matthew Mangino, she turns off the phone for 2.5 hours, but also they have all this other mapping location and they've got an idea of where she is. What do you think's going on here? Why turn it off for 2.5 hours but not for the whole trip?
Yeah, that's interesting, Vinny. But you know, one thing that I thought, and it was enhanced when I heard his friend talk about, you know, wanting to have closure, his fellow member of the National Guard. I know when I was a prosecutor, we would often use the National Guard, particularly helicopter service for drug interdiction and things like that. I mean, this seems like something that the National Guard would want to be involved in. It appears that they were involved in some way in helping this investigation. But certainly you have a lot of man and woman power in the National Guard. You have the opportunity to use technology. You have the opportunity to use aerial surveillance. You know, could they play a greater role in trying to find his body? If, you know, she's correct and we believe what she said in terms of how she murdered her husband and what she did after. She said she went to the north and she buried him in a shallow grave. And you would think that, you know, over some time, whether, you know, by animals or whether, you know, the body is going to become, you know, dislodged from its burial site and you know, someone is going to stumble upon you know, Matthew Johnson's body. But I would think that, you know, the aid of the National Guard and the resources that they have, because it's one of their own, might be very helpful in this case.
Absolutely. We only have about 15 seconds left here, Mike. What are the odds of someone just casually being in that area and coming across these remains? Who isn't searching for it, whether it's a duck hunter or someone else?
Well, I guess I think about Suzanne Morphew and the fact that her body was recovered on a completely independent search. So hopefully when duck season hits and people are out there looking and doing bird watching, that somebody stumbles across a piece of evidence that leads them to this site. But got to keep in mind, as the body decomposes, it's going to get sucked down into that mud and be awfully hard to find.
Mike King, Matthew Mangino, great to have your expertise and insight. Thank you so much. Since when is murder a viable option for parents who are splitting up? Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of these cases now on court TV. People who have no history or connection to the world of crime accused of the most serious of all charges, the murder of your child's parent. I just don't understand why you would ever do that to your own child. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.